Welcome to this episode of the Voynich Manuscript podcast. My name is Finn Hammersley.
I am Josh.
Mephistopheles, the god of all creation.
Madeline. And today we are talking about the travesty that was Fordlandia. After that, do any of you know anything about Fordlandia?
It has something to do with a car.
I have a feeling it has something to do with Harrison Ford.
Harrison?
Harrison Ford.
Whatever his name is.
Henry.
Which one?
Henry Ford.
Harrison?
That's it.
Harrison Ford is Han Solo.
And Indiana Jones.
Same person. Not remotely the same person, but like...
Same person, just like 100 years apart.
They're the exact same person.
Yeah.
Adam
Henry Ford.
Sandler's the fucking Great Gatsby.
Not Adam Sandler again.
Harrison Ford is Henry Ford.
Can you tell we record these all at once?
What?
Adam Sandler is our god.
So, Fordlandia is the name of an abandoned town in the middle of the Amazon rainforest. It was owned by Henry Ford, but I'll need to give you some context before we go into the nitty-gritty about Fordlandia. Harrison Ford was a madman.
Harrison Ford?
Okay.
Shut up!
It's
Henry.
going to be flicking between Henry and Harrison
Yeah.
throughout this whole episode.
Just know we're talking about Henry.
Harrison.
In
So
what?
this is the time when Han Solo shot first.
In one of Henry Ford's biographies, the biographer said that he was good at making cars, and that was about it.
Huh.
Ouch.
I've heard that quote as well.
Yeah, it's a great quote. I couldn't find which biography it was from because the website I was on didn't cite it, which was
Yeah.
annoying. But Henry Ford, if you didn't know, was the founder of the Ford Motor Company and was the inventor of the modern production line. And we were discussing off episode just recently, like, he was not a good person.
Not a good person.
No, like
Good labour rules,
Very
apparently,
anti-Semitic.
but like...
oh, extremely anti-Semitic, but
But he did invent the 5-day work week.
and the production line, like I just said. But also, Hitler actually cited Henry Ford in Mein Kampf.
I didn't.
I haven't read Mein Kampf. It's on my reading list.
It's on my. I have read it.
Why have you two read it?
I haven't read it.
You
I
haven't?
want to read it.
I have.
Thank you, Finn.
But yeah, he was like. Hitler was like, oh yes, this Henry Ford fella, he does good things about.
He was pretty poggers, that man.
He doesn't like the Jews like I, and then he's good at making like good people work hard often with this production line thing.
You know, I still find it funny that the reason Henry Ford invented the 5-day work week was so that so that his workers would go out and buy his cars.
I know it was. That's not why.
Wasn't it?
No, it was because when it was only a 6-day work week, when it was a 6-day work week, people would get smashed on Sundays.
Well, no, it's because they had to go to church.
Yeah, and afterwards get completely smashed and come in hungover and stuff on Mondays, and often take the days off. So it might as well have been a 5-day work week.
Except we didn't get that day.
So he like Saturday is also a day off. Get smashed then. Have a hangover Sunday. Be better on Monday.
Huh.
But like previously said, he was nuts, and probably the best way that his lunacy is shown is by his desire to be in control of the making of every aspect of his Ford Model Ts, which led to the creation of Fordlandia.
Okay.
So just a town, but everything is a car.
I'm getting to that. So Henry Ford controlled everything. He owned mines to get the metals to make his car. He owned quarries to get the sand to get the windows for his car. He owned the homes that his workers lived in. The only thing he didn't control was the rubber production for the wheels.
I've heard about that.
In the 1920s, the British owned a monopoly over British and Dutch, owned a monopoly over the world's production of rubber for tyres. The rubber plantations were mainly in the East Indies because rubber grew the best there. But that's not where it was native. Rubber trees are native to Brazil, so Ford decided to go straight to the source.
They're Brazilians and coming to take over everything you own. Have a nice day.
It's actually a lot more cordial than that.
Yeah.
Ford soon went into negotiations with the government of Brazil. After some heavy negotiating, it was decided that Ford could own a 2.5 million acre, or 10,117 kilometers squared, piece of land called Boa Vista. I looked around to try to find a good comparison for how big this is. I couldn't find one, because that's a very...
Wait, how big was it?
2.5 million acres.
Holy shit.
It is a bit smaller than Northern Ireland.
It's a lot of land.
There's a lot of land, all in the smack bang in the middle of the Amazon. This was given to Ford for free, in return for the Brazilian government getting 9% of the profits from Fordlandia.
Oh, that'd be 9% of like all his profits then.
Yeah.
So I was gonna say that's not much, but then it's like, no, that's a lot.
That is a lot of money. So, that is pretty much the backstory for Fordlandia. Now I'm getting into the actual topic of the town.
I was gonna say, why would this be a mystery? It's just rich man buys
It's-
entire Amazon.
It's not a mystery, but it's a cool story. The mystery is more, why the fuck would anyone think this was a good idea?
Because Henry
Yeah.
Ford was a genius.
So work on the area began in 1926. It was immediately hindered by poor logistics and disease that affected the workers, who succumbed to yellow fever and
So it's
malaria.
Like, yellow fever and malaria would be like the #1 issue.
I think I started to watch some YouTube video about this, but didn't finish it.
I think I got it my recommended as well. I don't think I watched it, but I think it was there.
The funny thing is, Ford... Excuse me.
Ford!
Ford decided that you know what, the fella I'm gonna hire for this to oversee this whole project, he's gonna have no previous experience in town planning, no experience in rubber planting, no experience in anything, no experience in car manufacturing, town running, logistics, none of that. He's just a guy that worked for him. So him and his family moved over to Boa Vista and began work on Fordlandia. No roads were available in the area, thus the area was only acceptable via the Tapinhos River. The site was developed as a planned community with different areas of the city being designed for Brazilian workers and the American managers. Which, first of all, can you see a bit of a...
Yes.
Yeah.
They all lived in the so-called American village. Typical American houses were being built in the middle of the Amazon.
Like, that doesn't work out.
Ooh, what? As was a hospital, school, library, hotel, swimming pool, playground, and golf course. This is just... Can I just say, I love this story. Not because it's a mystery, but because it's fucked. And I love it because it is fucked.
Yeah.
In 1928, the Ford Motor Company sent 2 merchant ships, both named after lakes, Ormoc and Fage, loaded with equipments and furnishing ranging from doorknobs to the town's water tower, which still stands today. And the town was then founded under the name Fordlandia. Seeking workers, several offices were opened in the city of Belém and Manaus, and with the promise of good wages, people of nearby states answered. Now, remember how I mentioned earlier about the fella who they hired to run the town had no experience in anything?
Yeah.
One
What
of
was his
those...
experience in?
Sorry?
What was his experience in?
He was basically just a factory worker.
Just a random factory worker.
Random factory worker. I'm pretty sure he had some connections with Henry Ford, like personal connections.
Ah, okay.
But-
Fucking nepotism.
Nepotism, yeah.
These my glasses just came off.
But remember how I said before, like he had experience, and one of those things he didn't have experience in was planting rubber, which was
Yeah.
the main purpose of this thing. So he decided to plant all the rubber trees in one area, extremely close together, which isn't how rubber trees grow. They have to be very far spaced.
So they take up a lot of nutrients. So they need
could-
to be spaced apart.
Precisely.
Okay.
Also, in this specific area of the jungle, the temperatures were a bit lower because it was further inland and they didn't have the heat from the ocean and all of that.
So yeah, cooler.
It was a lot cooler than like the rest of the Amazon. Because
They
of
need
this,
heat to grow, don't they?
yeah, because of that, in lower temperatures, funny thing with rubber trees, the latex in the trees actually travels down further to the trunk, not like all evenly dispersed throughout the tree. He didn't know this.
Wow, what a surprise.
And as the temperature rises throughout the day, the latex spread through the tree, tapping the tree less effective. So he needed to do it in like very early morning or evening and night. He didn't know this, and he was doing it in the middle of the day, working 9 to 5, like a typical American working day.
That's fine.
Yeah. Due to this, typical journey of rubber tappers began early in the morning, and started at 5 and ended at noon.
That's not American.
No, but
Yeah, bad
yeah.
Brazilian.
the plantation was divided into areas, and each worker was assigned a different area to prevent workers from tapping the same trees successively. Now this is just like previously said, nepotism.
Nepotism.
It's oh god, I love this story.
Nothing bad happened.
In
is
Fordlandia. The town had a strict set of rules imposed by the managers. Alcohol, women, tobacco, and even football were prohibited within the town.
Huh.
No women.
Because, like, at this point, Prohibition started in America.
Yep.
So-
So prohibition had to start here too.
Yeah.
The whole new women thing is a little more confusing.
Did you not remember in America when women were banned in the 20s?
Right.
These included inside the workers' own homes, and inspectors would go from house to house and check how organised the homes were to enforce the rules. The inhabitants circumvented these prohibitions by paddling out to on merchant riverboats moored beyond the town's jurisdiction, often hiding contraband goods like inside fruits like watermelon.
Woman inside watermelon. We have hatched the watermelon, out come Booby.
Booby melon. A small settlement was established 8 k's away, upstream, called the Island of Innocence, and it had bars, nightclubs, and brothels on it. So, the land was hilly, rocky, and infertile. None of Ford's managers, because he cycled through a few like owners of the town, because one of them, the first one just quit. He was like, no, fuck this.
Yeah.
The people hate me. I'm not good at this. I'm quitting while I'm ahead.
Well, I don't think he was ahead by the sounds of it.
Yeah, the land was hilly, rocky, and infertile. None of Ford's managers had the requisite knowledge of tropical agriculture, and in the wild, like I said previously, in the wild, rubber trees grew apart from each other. A, because of the nutrients needed, but also B, to protect them against disease, like tree disease.
Tree disease.
Often growing close to big trees for added support. In Fordlandia, however, trees were planted close together, which made them easy prey for diseases such as tree blight, and also stuff like ants, lace bugs, red spiders, and leaf caterpillars.
So who red spiders and other kinds of spiders? Do they fuck up trees, apparently?
Maybe. But I do have a very interesting story about the leaf caterpillars.
They look like
'Cause-
leaves.
When the Americans first got there, they had a problem with these leaf caterpillars because they'd keep eating the leaves off rubber trees, which would stop them from photosynthesizing, which would stop them from growing. And they used pesticides,
Oh no.
which worked.
Oh,
But then,
fuck the rubber up.
no, it didn't.
Wow. Okay.
Oh.
But then, the caterpillars started evolving.
Oh.
They managed to speed up evolution. First of all, they started adapting to hide underneath leaves instead of on top of them like they normally do. so that the people had stopped noticing them. Also, they started getting resistant to the pesticides. There's more adapting than evolving,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
still, a thing that takes many years happened over the course of about 25. Native workers on the plantations were given unfamiliar food, such as hamburgers, canned foods, and the such, and were forced to live in American-style housing. Most disliked it that way, and the way they were treated often required to wear ID badges and work through the middle of the day under the tropical sun. And often they would just straight up refuse to work.
Fair.
That's reasonable. I'd probably do it too.
In 1930, the native workers grew tired of the American food and revolted in the town's cafeteria. Yeah, this
American food isn't great.
this became known as the breaking of pans.
Brazilian food is pretty good though.
Yeah.
A lot of Brazilian food's really nice.
Have you ever tried cuy?
I don't think so.
It's guinea pig.
I'm kind of curious though.
It's just flayed guinea pig that's served as
I'm happy I've never tried it.
That sounds like it tastes pretty
shockingly nice. I've had it once, and it was only like a piece, like a very small piece. It was very nice. Tasted almost like pork,
good. I figured
but
it
Okay.
like gamey.
I'm not a big fan of pork, so I guess...
I mean, guinea pig, you know.
That didn't occur to me. I already said that. The rebels proceeded to cut the telegraph wires and chased away the managers, even the town's cook into the jungle for a few days until the Brazilian army arrived and the revolt ended. Agreements were then made on the type of food the workers should be served. So basically, like, bitch, give us our normal diet until the army came. The government of Brazil was suspicious of any foreign investments, particularly in the northern Amazonian region, and offered little help. It wasn't long before the numerous problems began to toll on the project, and the decision was made to relocate. Fordlandia was abandoned by the Ford Motor Company in 1934, and the project was relocated downstream to Belterra, 40 kilometers away from the city of Santarém, where better conditions to grow rubber existed. A few years later, synthetic rubber was developed.
Yeah. I was waiting for that because that happened in the 1940s?
Early 40s.
Yeah.
I can't remember the exact year. 45.
Yeah.
So, reducing the world's demand for natural rubber. Ford's investment opportunity dried up overnight without producing any rubber for Ford tyres. And the second town was also abandoned. In 1945, Henry Ford's grandson, Henry Ford II, sold the area, comprising both towns, back to the Brazilian government for a loss of over 20 million USD, which is the equivalent of $288 million nowadays.
You'd get that back in a month.
Nowadays, he probably would, but back then in 45.
Oh yeah, true. You know, that's an ouchie.
In spite of the huge investment and numerous invitations, Henry Ford never visited Fordlandia.
We're gonna name this town about me. Okay, goodbye now.
The town remained inhabited by roughly 90 people until the latter half of the early 2000s, so like 2005 sort of time. No basic services were offered in the area, with medical help only coming by boat but at long intervals. That changed when people looking for a place to live decided to go back to the town, often claiming houses. The town is now a district of Aveiro, and now has nearly 3,000 people as of 2017.
Nice.
Oh, so I thought it'd just be like completely abandoned.
It was basically completely abandoned for a while, but now it's starting to regrow. But as a Brazilian city,
And hopefully not called Fordlandia.
it does have a new name, but I didn't think to look up what it was.
Fair enough.
But yeah, and that is basically the story of Fordlandia. This is going to be a shorter episode. I always kind of planned it to be a shorter episode, especially considering the last 2 weeks. Whew.
Yeah.
No, it's still called Fordlandia.
Is it?
It is still called Fordlandia to this day.
Wow, that's actually pretty cool.
Except the A is different now. They put a little arrow above the A in land.
Yeah. But yeah, and that is the crazy story of Fordlandia. Like I said, a personal favourite of
And
mine.
this is why
Nice.
we don't like nepotism.
Nepotism is bad. Ford was an anti-Semitist, and
5-day work week, so nice.
But he invented
Yeah.
getting drunk on Saturdays.
yeah. And it just occurs to me, I basically talked through that entire episode, never allowing for you guys to
No,
bug
that's
in.
alright. There wasn't too much to, like...
What's your
say
theory
for
on
this
this?
one.
Yeah, your theory? Any theories?
No.
Ford is actually the smartest man in human history. He predicted this podcast. So he knew we were going to talk
See,
about
he
it.
wasn't smart, he was just psychic.
So you don't know what's going to happen. Now he's going to sue us and make all the money off of this episode.
Who
He's
currently
dead.
owns Ford? It is Henry Ford.
I'm Googling it. I'm checking. Who currently owns Ford? William Clay Ford. The great-grandson of Henry Ford.
Oh my god, that would have been Henry Ford II's son as well.
He knows what's happening. They planned this.
I actually got a lot of the information for this off Ford's website.
I think they're willing to just admit they made a fucking mistake.
They didn't though. They played it like it was a great success on the website. It was like, here's the town. It may have been a bit messed up, but it ultimately worked. No, it didn't.
It ultimately worked at a loss of only $284 million.
Yeesh. But
That could
Yeah.
be like hundreds of Activision Blizzards.
Not really hundreds, but like
I don't know.
4.
It
Yeah.
was like 69 billion.
60,
wasn't it?
yeah, something around this. I have 65,
I think it was 69 billion. Like for the
Nice.
funnies.
But yeah, unless any of you have anything else to say, I think we'll call this episode here.
Sounds good.
The invention of synthetic rubber killed Henry Ford.
Exactly. I'm Josh.
I'm Finn,
I'm unknown.
and that has been today's episode. Bye.